Christy. Welcome to day 7 of my 2021 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be using the Hello Bluebird Winter Skate as well as the Slimline Skating Pond die. So I've stamped my images out on some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. I'm starting with the fox, and I'm using my favorite combo for foxes, which is YR12, YR14, and YR18. So I'm going to start with that YR18 and do some shadows on the outer edges of his face and also on his tail. On his face, I'm adding them on either side since he's facing forward. On the tail, I'm adding it toward the right because his body would be casting a shadow there. And then I blended out with the YR14 and finished with the YR12 for the highlight. You could also color in his legs. I decided to make him look like he's wearing pants. I think it's totally optional. So for the whites of his body, I'm going to use YR000 and YR00. I added a little bit of that into his ears and his hands. I left the little white socks there, and then onto his face and the edge of his tail. Blend it out with the YR000 and let that fade into the white. And I'm also going to take those two shades and add some color to the insides of the mice and the bunny's ears. So I just started with that YR00, and then I'll quickly color those with the YR000 to blend. Then I'm moving on to his sweater, and I wanted something that was a bluish undertoned green. So I went with G02, G03, and G07. Starting with the G07 and again doing his shadows on both sides since he's facing forward, and then also on the underside of his arms and right below his scarf. I figured that would be casting a little shadow as well up there at the collar. So I blended out the G07 with the G03, and then I'm going to fill in the rest with the G02. And I'll be adding some more details to that later on. I'm actually going to be doing quite a few details on their clothes today, on their sweaters. I just wanted to try something new and see if I could do some different designs. So stay tuned for that. I did do a second layer on his sweater. I left that in this video so you could see what a difference that makes. And then I'm going to move on and color in a few more of the critters' outfits with these shades. I'm going to do the mouse on the right, I'll do his pants. And the mouse on the left, I'll do the scarf. Now, I have seen other people color that in with the same shade as the sweater, and it made it look like a turtleneck, which was super cute. I just figured it was a scarf and the tails were behind the back, so I colored it differently than the sweater, but I think that's a definite option for you. I'm moving on to some dark blue, and I chose B93, B95, B97, and B99. I started with that B99, which is a really rich dark shade, and then blended that out with B97, and then B95, and I'm going to fill in with the B95. I'm going to save the B93 for one of the other images. So I'll just use the darkest 3 shades on that scarf, and I'll do the same for the mouse on the left's pants. So he can be wearing like blue jeans. This is my favorite combo for blue jeans. I think it is just gorgeous for like a darker wash. And then if you want a lighter wash, I take away the B99 and add in the B91. So I'm doing the sweater on the mouse on the right with this dark blue. I wanted this to be a nighttime scene, and I think that combo of blues is such a rich shade for night. So that will be mirrored in that coloring. And then I'm going to do the little bunny that's sitting down. I don't think he's actually wearing clothes, just a scarf. But I wanted to make it look like everybody had on outfits and they were all bundled up for the weather. So I'm going to color in his little body as if he's wearing like a one-piece snowsuit. And this is where I'm finally going to add in that B93. I started with the B99 down on the left since he's facing toward the right. I want to have my light source kind of in the center of the card, and he's going to be on the left of the card. And then blended toward the top right until I got to that B93. And then I'm going to add in some reds. I went with R24, R29, and R39. So my fox is going to get some red pants. I'm starting with that R39. I did a shadow up under his sweater and then along the inside of his legs. And then I'm blending out with the R29. And then I'll fill in with the R24. This combo is just so bright and vibrant, and I think it works so great for Christmas. So now you can kind of see what my color palette is going to be. It's going to be that really pretty green with a dark blue and the bright red. I just really thought those colors would look really nice in a nighttime scene and that they would really pop against the neutral tones of the critters. So I'm going to do the mouse on the left's sweater and the mouse on the right's scarf. So I'm kind of making sure that nobody has like the same outfit going on. I'm skipping around and doing different articles of clothing with the same combos so that each thing is a little bit different. And then I decided to do the squirrel in an outfit like the bunny, except in red. So I'm starting with that R39 again, but I'm putting the shadow down the right-hand side now. And I had to draw in like a little sleeve because like I said, they're not supposed to be wearing clothes, so there's no line there. You could also take a black marker and draw that in if you wanted to, but if you'd use a dark enough Copic, you can't really tell that there wasn't a line there to begin with. So I decided to add in the R22 just like the bunny. It needed 4 shades to create the kind of contrast that I was looking for. And then I'm going to move on to the rest of my critters now. So for the bunnies, I pulled out E41, E42, E43, and E44. So I'm starting with the E44 and doing my shadows on this first little guy. And I'm going to skip over his body as well because he's also going to be wearing an outfit. He has a little line on his sleeve, which I think is actually to show that he's wearing a mitten, but I decided not to give people mittens on this one, and they're just going to have their little paws showing. So I'm blending forward on his face and doing a little white area around his eye and mouth. So I just did kind of like a half of a heart shape there. And then I pulled in the E41 to blend that into the white. And then I'll add a little color to his hands with the E43. And then hop over to the other bunny. Haha, I didn't intend that to be funny, but I guess bunnies do hop, so that works. Anyway, I'm going to color him pretty much the same, except I ended up not giving him a little white area on his face. I thought about it, but I just didn't want him to be exactly the same. I started going in that direction, blending lower and lower toward that area, but I kind of just decided I wanted him to be filled in, so I went over that with the E41 and then just colored in his little paw as well. For the red squirrel, I'm going to use E33, E35, and E37. So I started with the E37 and I'm laying in my shadows on the face and ears and adding in the little paws, and then I'm going to do a shadow on the underside of the tail so it really creates that little bushy end there, so that looks nice and fluffy. And then I'm going to blend forward with the E35 and just kind of soften up the edge of that E37 because it is quite a dark color, and because I already have a lot of bold colors with their outfits, I didn't want it to get too heavy-handed. I used the E33 to blend that out, and to be honest, I almost added in the E31 but just decided to finish off with just the E33. And then for the mice, I went with E70 and E71, just the two shades. The E74 I felt like would add too much darkness, and I wanted them to look nice and soft. So the E71 is going to be my darkest. And just like I did with that first bunny, I'm going to leave a little white area around their faces, and I'll use my colorless blender to soften the E70 into that white because it is quite a bit of a difference there. Then I took the C3 to add just a tiny bit of shading to all of the ice skates to make them look white, but since it is a nice nighttime scene, I wanted to have a little bit of a darker shadow. And then I pulled in R11 and R20 to add a little bit more of a pink tone to the insides of all of their ears, and also to give them some rosy cheeks. So I did my little classic oval shape with the R20, and then I'm going to blend around that with the R11. I just kind of trace the edge, and that softens it into the fur tone. And then I also used the R20 to do the mice's tails. I forgot the guy on the left, but I went back and got him later. Then I'm going to go back to my bunny's outfit, and I was feeling a little brave and wanting to try something really different, and not only add some details to his outfit with a white gel pen, but also to add some details with Copics. I went with some lighter greens in the same tone, so I added the G00 to the G02 and G03 that I used earlier, and I did a little collar, and then I did a little band across the waist area, and then the white parts I just colored in with the G02. And I felt like I needed to darken that up once I kind of had things blocked out the way I wanted them. So I added in the G07, and then I'm going to blend that out with the G03 and then the G02 on that waist area. So it has a nice vibrant color, just like the fox's sweater. So once I have that collar done, I'm going to also do a few little details on some of the other critters. I use that G00 to add some white to the bunny on the far right, and also the red squirrel's scarves. And then I'm going in with the G03 and adding a few little stripes. Or actually, I think that's the G07 that I used first. And then I'm going to grab the G03 and do a few more little stripes going in the opposite direction for the squirrel to create a plaid. Then I did R24 to add some more stripes, just going up and down for the bunny on the far right. And then I added some more of those into the plaid on the red squirrel as well. And I use R39, so I would have the two tones of the green and also the two tones of the red. Then I went back to my B95 and added in some more stripes to the bunny's scarf, just kind of filling in the rest of the space there. And then I added in the B93 and the B91 to do the bunny's scarf. Since he was going to be sort of close to the fox on the scene, I didn't want their scarves to be too identical, so I just went with a lighter tone of the same shades. And then now I'm going to start adding in my white gel pen details. And let me tell you, I was so super nervous to do this, but it's something I've really been wanting to try. So I just decided to go for it. And I'm doing a little snowflake design on the belly of the red squirrel. And then for the bunny, I outlined the little sections first, just to kind of give them a bit more definition. And then I decided to do a little scallop on the top and bottom edge of that green section. So I did it on the top first, and then I just turned it the other direction for the bottom. And then I did little white stripes on the collar. And then I'm going to do little polka dots to fill in the center space. And then I breathed a big sigh of relief because I didn't totally screw it up. And then I added some white gel pen to the red squirrel's scarf as well. And then for the fox's sweater, I wanted to do like little plus signs across his sweater to kind of give that a little design to it as well. Something that would be different from what I had done on the other critters. I made sure to have some that kind of ran off the edge, and I put some on the arms of the sweater as well. And then for the little blue jumper on the bunny, I decided to do like a little trio of snowflakes. And then I went over all of their eyes with a black gel pen, not the two that had their eyes closed. And then I trimmed these images out with their matching dies. To create my background, I took a piece of Bristol smooth surface cardstock and die cut that using the Slimline skating pond scene. I kind of taped that together so it wouldn't slide around in my die cut machine because I did have to run it through twice because it's a little bit longer than my cutting plates. So then I just carefully popped out the different sections, and I'm going to try to keep them together as much as possible so I know what's what, and it just makes it a little bit easier to fit it back together. And then I'm going to take some speckled egg Distress Oxide, and I'm going to add that to the frozen pond. I want to create like an icy look to that, so I think speckled egg is a really nice color for that. If you don't have that one, I would maybe use tumbled glass because you want something that's a really pale blue. But I liked that this one is a little bit more on the gray side, and since it's an evening scene, I thought that would work. I'm leaving the center white because I want it to look like a pond that has kind of frosted over. And, you know, so if you look at pictures of ponds like that, you know, a lot of times they'll have like a white center, but it's more blue on the outer edges where it may not be quite as frozen. Next, I'm going to work on the sky. So I just popped those trees out off to the side. And then I'm going to start with the same shade because I want everything to kind of meld together in the background so those critters really stand out. So once I'm done with my speckled egg, I'm going to add in some stormy sky, and I'll bring this in from the top and kind of just blend those colors together and create like a darker haze where you can see like night is falling over the treetops. And then to darken that up, I'm also going to grab some chipped sapphire, and this time I'm going to be a little more sparing with it. I just want it mainly at that top edge and a little bit down the left hand side. And then I'm going to set this piece aside. I'm going to go to my snow drifts now, the part with the tree cut out, and then there's the other little part that goes down at the bottom. And I'm going to go back to my speckled egg again, and I'm going to add like a frosty glow at the top of each of those snow drifts. But I'm being a lot softer with my pressure because I want this to obviously be snow and not the pond. So just a little bit on there to give it that look. And then I'm going to move on to my 3 trees. The first shade that I'm going to use for them is Lucky Clover, because this is a really good match for like the I would say either the G05, probably the G05, maybe even the G07, but it's totally in that bluish green tone that I used for my Copic coloring. And then to darken those up, I'm going to add some pine needles, and I'm going to add that only to the left hand side. So I'm imagining that my light source, which would be the moon, is going to be off to the right hand side out of the picture of this little scene, but it's kind of up there on that ridge, I would say. So that way the left side of these trees would be cast in more shadow. So I'm just pouncing that mini ink blending tool on there. And then for the tree stumps, I'm going to use some gathered twigs and just carefully add that to the thin little piece that's down there at the bottom. And then I'll set all of these elements off to the side to dry. And in the meantime, I'm going to create my Slimline card. So I've got a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and I'm cutting that down to be 8.5 by 7. And then I'm going to grab my scoring tool, and I'm going to score that at the 3.5 mark. It's at the 4 bar mark if you have the Martha Stewart scoreboard, which I don't think they make anymore, but the EK Success one is very similar. So then I'll take my Teflon bold folder and just score that so that I have a nice crease, and then I can start putting this scene together. I'm going to start with the frame. I always find that's the easiest. So I'm adding a very thin bead of glue to the back of that frame, and then I'm going to line that up carefully with the edge of my card. Make sure it's on there nice and straight, and then I'll just press that down into place, make it sure it's nice and smooth and adhered. And then I will take my little snowdrift, which is the bottom piece. You can start at the top or the bottom. I just decided to start at the bottom with this piece here. So I'll glue that down, and then I'll take my skating pond and add some glue down to that. I'm using a lot of glue because I really want all the edges of this background to be well adhered. I don't want anything getting caught, you know, as you're trying to put it through an envelope, you know, to send it through the mail. So I want to make sure that even all those little bits around the trees are well adhered. So that's going to be my next section. And then instead of filling in the trees, I figured it was easier to skip up to the sky. So once again, adding all of my glue into all of those little pieces, and then I'll fit that one flush with the top of the card. And then all I have left to do, because everything's going to line up nice and perfect, is to pop those little 3 trees in. So I'm going to start with the largest one. And like I said, making sure to get that glue all the way down to the edges. And then I'm going to just fit that piece right in there. Now you can see how it's really coming together. I love when these scenes start to come together once you've got, you know, almost all of the little pieces filled in there. You can really see how it's going to end up looking. And then I've got the smallest tree. There's like a small and a medium, which are pretty close in size, but you still can tell them apart. And then that nice big one, which you can obviously see is a lot taller, but also has like a thicker trunk to it too. So I'll fit this last one in the center, and then I'm going to pop this entire card in my MISTI so I can stamp my sentiment on it. I'm going to put my sentiment down at that bottom snowbank, and I'm stamping it in Lawn Fawn walnut ink to kind of match those little tree trunks. And I'm using the sentiment that says warm wishes. I stamped it over toward the right side of that to give me room for one of my critters. And then I'm going to take some manatee ink, and I'm going to stamp the little skating swirls. One is shaped like a heart and the other one is a loop. And I wanted them to be, you know, visible but not like in your face. So that's why I went with that super pale gray ink. And I forgot to clean them off first. So because they were brand new from the manufacturer, that ink kind of beaded up on the surface of the stamps, so that's why I cleaned it off with my stamp chamois. And then I'm finishing off the inside with a couple more of those critters and the sentiment that says holiday hello and a couple of snowflakes, all included in that winter skate stamp set. So before I go any farther, I want to add some snowfall to my scene. So I'm using some Gansai Tambi Starry Colors and tapping that against my finger so that it covers the entire card, although I am concentrating it a lot more toward the top where it's going to show up against that darker sky and the trees, and then just a little bit as I get toward the bottom. And now I'm ready to begin adhering my images. So I'm going to start with this fox, because he's kind of like the main image to me for this scene. He's going to go down toward the front, and he'll be leaving that little heart-shaped loop-de-loop there on the ice. And then I'm going to take my bunny and squirrel that are holding hands, and I'll put them in front of the other loop a little bit farther back in the scene. Really, really cute. I just love these images so much. I'll take the little bunny that is sitting down, and I'm going to add him to the snowbank right above the sentiment. So he has gotten all tuckered out, and he is taking a little break, waiting for the hot chocolate to arrive. And then I'll take the two mice and kind of fill in those empty spaces, one toward the top of the pond and then one between the two bunnies there, just kind of breaking up the brown there with a little bit of that gray for the mouse. To finish up the card, I'm going to add some Stardust stickles. I'm going to do it to the scarves of my two mice and also the little bunny that didn't have any detail on her scarf, and to the fox's scarf as well. And I even added a little bit to the bunny with the striped scarf since he didn't have the white gel pen on there. And then I also decided that I wanted to have some on the trees. I decided to put it on the lighter side of the trees, as if the wind and ice kind of blowing down the mountain is kind of crystallizing on that right hand side of the trees. And I really like how that even lightened up that Distress Oxide a little bit more, so you get even more of a contrast between the two sides. So my last step is to take another frame. I wanted to frame this up with a little bit of a slightly different color. I'm using the same speckled eggshell cardstock from Lawn Fawn that I used for my card base, and I'm going to pop that over top of the other one, which is Bristol Smooth Surface. So it's not a pure white anyway, so I wanted something that would just add a little bit of contrast, plus it ties it in with the inside of the card once you open it up. So I just pop that in place right over top to finish that off, and there you can see that. I'll look at all of that sparkle and shine as it catches the light, and I'll give you another peek at the inside as well. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. I had so much fun creating it and adding all of those little details to their outfits. So if you enjoyed it too, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I'm posting new ones every Monday and Friday, plus bonus videos as well, wherever I can fit them in. If you're interested in any of these products, I'll have them linked down below for you in the description bar. And if you'd like to keep watching, here is day 7 of the previous 2 years of holiday card series. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day. Bye-bye.